Hey guys, this is T4U here, the coach of the Boston Red Sox over at the WPF Draft League server. I'm here today to bring you a video that is a little bit of just my prep for one of my battles for this week, but also a little bit of how to prep in general. A lot of matches are decided during the prep stage. If you bring the wrong things or you don't consider what your opponent can bring, the match can be decided as early as team preview. If, for example, you draft something like Urshifu Single Strike, and then your opponent doesn't bring anything that can resist Wicked Blow, or live a Wicked Blow, or outspeed and threaten me before I can Wicked Blow, you lose. And so going into prep, you need to know that, and you need to be able to identify those threats and identify your means of defeating them. And the way you put your team together to address your opponent's threats is probably the most important piece of drafting or playing in draft leagues beyond drafting the team itself. So we're going to look at my team, and then we're going to look at my opponent's team, and I'm going to show you kind of how I would go about putting together a team. I'm not going to make you sit through an entire team builder. I haven't actually finished making this team, but I'm going to show you kind of where I'm at, how I'm thinking, and hopefully give you some ideas to improve your own draft and prep experience. As always, if you have any questions, I'm always in the WPF server. I will leave a link down below to that, as well as the other content creators here in the server. Jump in and give me a question, or give me a shout if you need anything. But to take this off to start, we're going to just quickly look at my team and then my opponent's team. So we've got, on my side, I've got Urshifu Single Strike, Diancie Mega, Sylveon, Slowbro, Cantonian Moltres, Vikavolt, Claydol, Dragalge, Boltund, Aegislash, and Golbat. And my opponent this week is going to be the Wooloo Wooloos and Nolan SR as their coach. He has Mega Garchomp, Ferrothorn, Tapu Fini, Blacephalon, Morpeko, Hitmonlee, Nihilego, Shuckle, Galarian Articuno, Barraskewda, and Wigglytuff. Now, when prepping, I could very easily just flip back and forth between these two and, try to come up with things and try to remember, okay, who's fastest, who's strongest, what do I need coverage for? But I've found it much easier to put all that information in one place, to be able to just quickly glance back and forth without having to continuously tab left and right. So what I would strongly recommend for anybody who is in a draft league to improve your own kind of ability to think through your prep and plan accordingly is to set up a Google Doc or something equivalent that you can just mess around in and tinker with and see what you need. So my Google Doc is right here. It's nothing particularly impressive or awe-inspiring. Basically on my left here, I just have my team organized by speed tier, and then my opponent's team also organized by speed tier. I have those again over here. It's probably pretty redundant. I just like having them here in the color so I can quickly glance at them. On this side, I have the same thing sorted by speed, but I also have them listed with their relevant priorities. And that just helps me if, I'm in on something and I just, off the top of my head, I can't remember, oh my god, I'm in on this Morpeko, I have 1 HP left, is there any way that it's going to kill me? I can just quickly check, oh yeah, it learns Quick Attack, so I do need to think about that before I make my play. Now, is Quick Attack from Morpeko likely? No. But if I lose the game because I didn't consider that that was an option and I had a safe play for that, I'm going to be pretty upset. So I do recommend, even if you don't type them out, just have an understanding of particularly priority moves that your opponent's Pokemon can learn, just because it might save your ass 1 week. Now, looking at this, the first thing you want to do is see where you lie in the speed tiers. So I'm looking at Barraskewda here at 136. That is the fastest Pokemon on either team. It's significantly faster than my Boltund. Boltund is number 2 though, so I'm not going to get consistently outsped by everything on his team. And then Diancie is also faster than the rest of his team as well. So as long as I have a plan for Barraskewda being faster, I don't have to necessarily worry about being consistently hit before I get a chance to hit. So that's one of the most important things to do, is just look at your speed tiers, see where things are, if things are close to you. If you see big gaps in speed, like Nolan doesn't really have a lot of those until down here, Tapu Fini to Wigglytuff, that's a big jump from 85 to 45. That's places where you can cut some speed to gain some power. So if I was bringing Aegislash, I don't need to run 252 speed Aegislash to, say, outspeed Wigglytuff and do some damage. I can run a slower, bulkier Aegislash, or even if I was running offensive Sylveon, this is a week I could afford Modest over Timid, because Timid's not going to outspeed anything over here, but Modest is still going to outspeed Wigglytuff while increasing my damage significantly. So looking for those gaps in the speed tiers is pretty important. I don't believe an Adamant Boltund would outspeed a Timid Blacephalon. But if I wanted to check that, my next tab over here is the Pokemon Showdown damage calcs. This is a super useful thing to have open and handy while you're prepping. So I can just quickly, I know how to spell. It's okay. Blacephalon. We're going to take away his Choice Scarf because that is not the point of this exercise. So a Timid Blacephalon hits 344 speed at absolute max. This is a Jolly Boltund at 375, so obviously I'm quite a bit faster. But if I were to switch that to Adamant, I'm hitting 341, which means that I cannot afford Adamant this week because I'm ever so slightly slower than Blacephalon. And as you can see, a Specs Blacephalon is just going to one-shot a Boltund. So even though I can kill it back, I didn't expect to one-shot it with Psychic Fangs. That's not stab or super effective. So Crunch would probably kill two of them. So I can't afford Adamant Boltund, but Sylveon I could run Modest if that's something I was interested in doing. And it's important to identify those spots and exploit them, because that damage boost that you can get from switching those natures can make the difference between 2-hit KOs becoming 3-hit KOs, or vice versa. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is what do I think is going to punch the biggest holes in my opponent's team. It's a pretty standard answer for me every week, because in this particular draft, I have Urshifu Single Strike. There is almost never something that's better at punching holes than Urshifu Single Strike holding a Choice Band. But looking at his team this week, I have to make sure that that's something I can actually justify bringing. So looking at things that are faster, we've got Morpeko tying me, and because Aura Wheel gives a speed boost every time he uses it, most of the time Morpeko is going to be faster than me rather than tying me. We've got Garchomp. When it is in Mega form, it is 92, but I put the 102 here just to remind myself that regular Garchomp is faster. So that's going to be a problem. Nihilego is faster, and it does learn Dazzling Gleam, so it can one-shot Urshifu. Blacephalon is faster, and I can't imagine I eat a Fire Blast well. And Barraskewda is faster and gets Close Combat. So all of those things are things I need to consider. Is Choice Band Urshifu worth it? Now, none of those Pokemon can come in on Wicked Blow. But if they're already in, I can't come in and threaten them out with a Wicked Blow because they're already faster than me and can already threaten me back. So I think it's highly likely that at least 2, if not 3 of those come. So half his team already. We're looking at things that are not as threatened by a choice-banded Wicked Blow as I'd like. So I do also see the combo of Finny and Ferrothorn down here. Finny does not like Wicked Blows. It doesn't take them well, but it takes them well enough that it can come in a couple of different times and sponge them. And it will one-shot Urshifu with any of the fairy moves it learns. Even Draining Kiss will one-shot almost every Urshifu. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go up to the damage calculator, and I'm going to look at Urshifu. And we're going to look at Big Punch Boy. He's what I ran last week. This is just pretty standard spread. I actually ran Scarf, but we're going to do Tapu Fini. We're going to say Calm Mind. This is whatever the OU metagame uses for Calm Mind Tapu Fini, I guess. So let's see. So yeah, Wicked Blow on a Scarf Urshifu is doing nothing. He can eat 5 of those, I think. And so let's give me Bands, because that's the more standard Urshifu. This is Adamant Band, and it's doing 38%. So if he has anything on the field, and I click Wicked Blow, as he switches to Tapu Fini, He eats the one on the switch in. He eats the second one while he goes for Draining Kiss, and he's going to do enough damage that he can live 2 more Wicked Blows and will kill me 40% of the time. So Choice Band Wicked Blow, probably not the right choice this week just because he's got such a dedicated hard counter to that move. But that is not necessarily the same thing as a hard counter to the Mon itself. So looking at his team, I don't want Iron Head as my fairy hitting move because this is a water fairy. It's going to be neutral. It also resists fighting. It does resist U-turn, but the one move that Urshifu learns that it is not resistant to or neutral to is Poison Jab. So Poison Jab with a Choice Band is a clean 2-hit KO, which is kind of tempting. That means if I make the right call, if I threaten him out with the Wicked Blow, the second time I try this trick, I can probably kill it with the Poison Jab on the switch in. The problem with that, though, is looking at his team, he has a Ferrothorn that would just love it if I locked myself into banded Poison Jab, as well as Nihilego shrugs those off like nobody's business. So I don't think I can afford to be locked in this week. So I'm going to switch over to Life Orb. Now, Adamant Life Orb Poison Jab is still a pretty good clean 2-hit KO on this random Finny spread. Let's say he's 252 because that makes more sense. So I am not 2-hit KOing anymore with leftovers. It is a 3-hit KO every time. Why do I have Leech Seed on? When did I click that? All right, we're going to take that off. So 32% chance to 2-hit KO. Still pretty good. I don't have to be quite as worried as I was before. But the important thing to note here when doing these damage calculators, damage calcs, is this is great offensively against this threat. At 222, even if... Whoop, I'm going to assume I'm still recording right now, but my computer froze for a second. There we go. All right, so 252 speed. Let's assume it's just max HP, max speed Finny. It's hitting 295 speed. I can't afford this because I'm still not OHKOing it. So it's not dying on switch in. And if it comes in like this, even if I do this, best case scenario, I've done 76%. It gets its leftovers. It's now at 30% health left. It's going to outspeed and one-shot. Even with no investment whatsoever, Draining Kiss is still a one-shot. So I do need Jolly because I need to be able to outspeed that timid Finny. And also, Articuno Galar at 95 base speed. I need to be able to outspeed that too. That's a very clean kill with Wicked Blow. But that's also a very clean kill with Hurricane, so I need to make sure that my hit goes before his. I don't need all of this speed, though. This is, if we go back and look at the team builder, at 95, Articuno is actually slower than Urshifu. I can afford to shave off a little bit of speed to make up that difference. The only relevant thing in that speed tier is Morpeko. I'm not even slightly intimidated by a Morpeko versus my Urshifu, so I can afford to lose that speed tie. I don't have to. I could very well run that speed, but I don't think Morpeko's coming. It doesn't really threaten a lot of my team. And the things it does threaten, I can easily pivot around with to avoid that. So I'm not going to worry too much about Morpeko, although it has to be considered the moment you completely discredit an opponent's Pokemon is the moment that one comes, and that's the one that sweeps you. So we're going to give myself 319 speed just to outspeed Articuno Galar. This will also outspeed the Tapu Fini because Tapu Fini is slower than Galarian Articuno. So 240 is the amount of speed I need. So my next tab, now that I've settled on an attack spread and a speed spread, is going to be to jump over here. And we're going to look at Big Punch Boy. So as you can see, I've given him a Life Orb because, like I said, I don't want to be locked into moves this week. I don't think I can afford it. I could also run Expert Belt. I could run any number of items. I could probably run a Fairy Resist Berry to live one hit from Finny. But I think the Life Orb is going to be more important in actually killing the Finny than living one hit and not being able to do anything significant in return. So my 252 in attack is to hit as hard as possible The 240 and Jolly Nature is to make sure I outspeed the Articuno and the Tapu Fini if it brings max speed. And then I've just kind of spread the other things around evenly. In general, you want your HP to be odd, so you can switch into things like 3 layers of spikes 4 times. Actually, I don't... No, look at it. I don't want those. I want it to be 341. But spikes you can switch into more times if you have an odd number of HP. If you have a number of HP that is divisible by 4 with exactly 1 left over, I can switch into 3 layers of spikes 4 times and be left with 1 HP at the end of it. This is also particularly important for things like Moltres and switching into Stealth Rocks. Yes, boots exist, but yes, sometimes they do get knocked off. They get removed. And sometimes you don't want to run boots. I ran Scarf Moltres a couple weeks ago, and I won the game because in planning, in prep, I set my HP to divisible by 4 with 1 remaining. So I came in on Stealth Rocks twice. My Scarf Moltres still had its Scarf. It outsped a Mew, and it was able to complete the damage it needed to kill the Mew and win the game with 1 HP left. If I hadn't set that, say I had like 342 HP when that happened, I lost. That game was over because I die on the second time I come into Stealth Rocks. So little things like that can go a big way. There's also, you'll see I have a tab up here, maximum leftovers recovery. That's going to be more important on the next Pokemon. But real quick, I'm just going to spread the remaining EVs across my defenses. Probably those 8 EVs in either of them aren't going to make a huge difference. But as you saw before, I didn't really need them in speed. So I'm just going to throw them into those defenses and maybe live a hit a little bit better. Next up, I have Aegislash, and I was playing around with this calc for a while. I didn't like a lot of the things I could do. Subtoxic didn't look quite good enough for me this week. I needed both the Shadow Sneak for the Blacephalon, but I needed the Iron Head to get through a lot of the Pokemon that were kind of going to either resist or shrug off a Shadow Sneak. Close Combat I needed almost exclusively for Ferrothorn, but also kind of for Morpeko on the off chance it comes. And King Shield is because I need to be able to get back into Shield form over and over again to be able to sponge those hits. Now, we're going to... I don't get why Showdown remembers a couple of names. This is what I name Rotoms. This is what I name Celesteelas. This is also a nickname for Celesteela. This is just a username I have on various things. I don't get why it has saved only those 4 things ever. But we're going to name you Oathblade. But anyways, in prep, that was how I decided these 4 moves. Leftovers is because I'm more interested in this Aegislash existing for a long period of time than I am in it killing things in one shot. I don't have any kind of setup. I'm not going to be hitting quite as hard because these are relatively low base power moves, unlike Urshifu, where Wicked Blow is only 80 base power, but it's always critting, so it's hitting like it was a 120 base power move. So I need this to stay a little longer, hence the leftovers. Now, next up we have Sylveon, and this is a pretty standard Cleric set. I don't have any EVs in here because I was going to work on those here with you guys. I need to be able to live... Ideally, I don't want anything to be able to 2-hit KO me outside of like super effective moves or moves I don't have any business being 2-hit KO'd by, not being 2-hit KO'd by. As a general rule of thumb, I'm going to put 252 HP just for... I'm going to need as much bulk as possible, and that makes my wishes better. Now, I know I'm going to use a negative attack nature because I'm not running any physical moves. I'm running Hyper Voice for just about everything, and Mystical Fire is there exclusively so Ferrothorn can't sit there and come in on me for free every single time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and Sylveon, and we're going to pull up this random Cleric set, and we're going to take away the defensive EVs. And we are going to switch over here, and we're going to look at things that I think I need to be able to live. So as a general thing, let's pull up Nihilego, because that's going to hit hard. Nihilego, Showdown usage. So here's a Power Herb Meteor Beam set. Sludge Wave is the strongest thing it can hit me with. That's going to do about 67% to this just flat HP. So this is if I was running physically defensive. Actually, let's go to Quirky for a minute, because that'll help me see where I need to be investing in natures and EVs. So Sludge Wave on just HP bulk is doing 73%. Meteor Beam's doing a little bit less, but let's take into account that if he clicks Meteor Beam, he gets the special attack boost as he does it. So Sludge Wave does 73, and a Meteor Beam with the boost is going to do 69. Once he already has that boost, I can no longer stay in because the following Sludge Waves will do enough to almost one-shot me, if not completely kill me. Now, for argument's sake, let's say I am a fully specially defensive Sylveon. I can eat one +1 Sludge Wave. The trade-off there, however, is that I can't do anything back. Mystical Fire is not going to be enough to save me. When I hit him with Mystical Fire, he's going to lose that +1. So let's say, best case scenario, I come in on him. I manage to pull off the Mystical Fire on the turn he Meteor Beams. So he's going to be at neutral when he hits me with those attacks. It's only doing 35%. And Sludge Wave's doing 55. Those are good numbers, except he can just keep hitting me, and I'm only doing 7% a turn. Mystical Fire is not going to save me there. So I'm going to go back, and I don't think Nihilego is the thing I need to be worrying about, because it's quite clear that Sylveon is never going to beat a poison type as a fairy. So let's look at Blacephalon, the other super heavy powered special attacker he's got. We have Blacephalon, and we've got, on this Calm set, which is up from before, a Timid Choice Scarf set is the default Blacephalon set. Mind Blown is the strongest move it can possibly hit me with, and that's going to do 49.4%. That means no matter what, if I run fully specially defensive Sylveon, he can't one-shot me. If he runs Specs, different story. He's absolutely going to be able to two-shot me with Mind Blown, although that will take the Blacephalon with it, which honestly, if your Cleric takes down their strongest special attacker, I think that's a fair trade most of the time. Now, for comparison's sake, let's say he's got Fire Blast and not Flamethrower. I can live that. He's got a small chance to hit KO after Leftovers recovery, which means Leftovers plus Protect me will have me always live it, barring things like Stealth Rocks or Spikes being on the field or me already having Chip. The trade-off is, once again, I can't do anything back. Although, in this case, Mystical Fire is a little bit more important because he's not doing quite as much, which means if I get the first one, I'm able to sponge these hits for days, and I'm not as worried about a Specs Blacephalon because I can just keep sitting there and wishing and Mystical Firing and protecting until he's just starting to lose his edge and his attacks are bouncing off me. Mystical Fire is a great move for a defensive Pokemon. I ran it on Moltres a couple of weeks. It was really good. This week, it is worth bringing on Sylveon. I don't know that I have done that yet this season. But I really want the win this week. Nolan is the only coach to be undefeated at the time of this recording. There's quite a few of us with only one loss. And I would really like to be the one to knock him down to join us. Also, I don't want to lose. So I'm really swinging for a win this time, which is why I'm going so hard into this prep. And I figured if I'm already going to be going hard into the prep, I might as well take the time to explain my thought process so that other people can hopefully learn and improve from it. But as we can see, the fully specially defensive Sylveon can probably stop Blacephalon. I mean, if he's Calm Mind, I can keep Mystical Firing until I run out of Mystical Fires, and he's going to take a little bit every time. But he's going to eventually win that if he's Leftovers, and if he's got a sub, that's even worse. So I have options there, but certain Blacephalon sets I need to watch out for. Now, that makes it seem like specially defensive is really good, and there's some good calcs to that. But let's look at something like Hitmonlee, I guess. Hitmonlee, if he brings that, that's a terrain sweeper, and we're going to give him Poison Jab because this is worst case scenarios of prep. Super effective Poison Jab is going to do 77% to this specially defensive Sylveon. Now, I can one-shot this thing back a good chunk of the time. So there is a fair trade there. But if I were to say run 252 and a bold Sylveon, I'm living 2 of those poison jabs. So when you're prepping, it's important to consider that the first thing you notice in prep might not be the best thing to sponge. If I'm more scared of this Hitmonlee while prepping, I should probably try to set my Sylveon to live this hit. Now, in this particular scenario, looking at these, I'm more scared of Blacephalon than I am of Hitmonlee. I am more scared of Nihilego than I am of Hitmonlee, and if I don't run the special defense, I have no chance of living 1 hit from it. I know I don't have a hope of living Garchomp hits because he can just set up Sword Stances every time that I try to Wish Protect. I can eat more Pico hits for days. I'm not even slightly scared of more Pico. Articuno is I'm going to have to be very careful about, because Galarian Articuno has competitive as its ability. So if he comes in on a turn I Mystical Fire, he's going to go straight to +2. And that is, I can still live that pretty well, actually. Let's see if I'm just bold. Not as well, but still pretty well. Whereas Calm, oh, I don't even really have to be all that scared of him. I can, that's at +2, geez. But basically, looking at these calcs, especially defensive Sylveon is going to sponge a lot more hits than physical is. And even though things like Ferrothorn and Hitmonlee and even Barraskewda to a degree are going to be threatening to it, I am more scared of his special attackers, and I'm more able to block them with Sylveon. So for this week, we're going to run 252 plus, oh, come on, minus, and we're going to throw the other 4 in defense. Now, those last 4 EVs, they might feel like throwaways, they might feel like they're not worth considering, but in particular, think speed. Now, this week it doesn't matter. Looking at Nolan's team, there is nothing between 0 EVs in speed Sylveon and a 4 EVs Sylveon. But if he had something over here like a Blissey who's base 55 speed, or another base 60, like say the Aegislash was over here, I might want to invest not just 4 EVs, but I might want to pull a couple of them out of either HP or special defense to get to something like, usually 12 is enough to speed creep someone, but those 12 EVs might be the difference between outspeeding an Aegislash and hitting it with a Mystical Fire, and underspeeding an Aegislash and eating either a Flash Cannon or an Iron Head before getting a chance to attack. And that can make all the difference in the world, so it's important to be aware of things in your relevant speed tiers, which is why I have the speeds all listed out in here. It's much easier for me to look at this and go, okay, 60, 85, 45, alright, so I'm probably good there, than it is to go at this and look at, okay, let's see, Sylveon, and then I pull up Sylveon on Showdown and I see what the base speed is. So that's another reason I really, really recommend something like a Google Doc, because it really just helps put your thoughts in order and helps you plan. So I'm going to keep going from here with prep. I don't think you guys need to sit here and just listen to me waffle and ramble about these specific things. Let's see, we're going to name you Plushie. That's a fun name. We'll make Aegislash shiny too. This is completely cosmetic. It makes no difference whatsoever, but I like the look. Okay, so that's my team so far. Going forward, I need to have answers to the physical threats. I need to have some kind of way to make sure that these things can get in safely to do their jobs. It doesn't do me any good if I bring in Urshifu and on the turn I bring it in, it eats a close combat from Hitmonlee. It doesn't do me any good to bring it in on Articuno Galar and it gets hit with an Air Slash and just drops on the way in. So going forward, I'm going to be looking at how to bring them in slowly. Things like Volt Switch on Vikavolt, Teleport on Slowbro. I could, if I'm feeling particularly cheeky, I could bring like U-Turn Golbat. But thinking of not just what teammates you need to do things, but what teammates you need to support them is going to go a long way in turning your prep from something that just gets demolished to something that's actually going to be a huge threat. So looking at what I've got so far, I've got Urshifu, who I'm looking at to be my big kind of damage breaker. He's going to take things and remove chunks of their HP bar that they aren't going to have time to get back. That's his job, and as long as he hits the field in relatively good condition, he's going to be pretty able to do that. Aegislash's job is to sponge hits, particularly from Nihilego, who can do almost nothing to me all of the time, except for foul play if he happens to catch me in sword form. He is able to deal big hits back, and then as needed, switch back to King Shield, and just basically sponge hits for as long as possible, and stand as a constant threat to the Blacephalon with the Shadow Sneak. Sylveon is here to sponge special hits, and with Wish, it's able to... we're going to keep Wish. With Wish, it's able to go back to Aegislash and top it off with HP if its leftovers aren't enough to keep up with the rest of the team. Currently, these three Pokemon, I'm lacking hazards, I'm lacking hazard removal, I'm lacking anything fast enough to challenge that Barraskewda. Those are all things I'm going to have to address in the next three Pokemon, as well as some kind of answer to something like Terrain and Hitmonlee with Unburden. I'm going to need something to deal with like Sub-Leech Seed or even just Leech Seed Protect Ferrothorn. And those are going to be things that are going to come out of this group. And as I'm going, you can't prep for everything. There are 1,000 sets you could run with these Pokemon. I mean, this Articuno could be the Stored Power set with, just Mine, Stored Power, Air Slash, and Recover. It could be Scarfed. It could be Specs. Hitmonlee could be Unburdened. It could be Limber. It could be Reckless. Nihilego can run that Meteor Beam set, or it could just be like a dual hazard setter with Sash. You can't possibly prep for all of those at the same time. So my advice for you when prepping, look at your opponent's team, try to identify the things you think are most threatening and most likely to come, and prep specifically for the worst possible outcome. What is the thing you are most scared of? So for Blacephalon, I'm much more scared of Specs than I am of Scarf this week. Scarf Blacephalon doesn't get the jump on anything but Diancie and Boltund. And honestly, if he's going to run Scarf Blacephalon to give him the power to beat Boltund, I think Boltund did its job. Because Scarf Blacephalon is going to lose to Sylveon. It's probably going to lose to Diancie, even though it outspeeds it. So I'm much more scared of Specs and its ability to just delete something. So I'm going to prep harder for Specs. But I am going to consider that Scarf could be an option. I'm not going to go into the battle thinking it's not Scarfed, just that it's less likely. And one thing you can also do to kind of improve your matches, as the season goes on, go back to your doc, go to your opponent, see what they've been bringing. Looking at his team, Wigglytuff has never come to a battle. I don't have to prep as hard for Wigglytuff, because it's probably not showing up. Games played is over here. Looks like Morpeko's only come once. Morpeko's probably not coming. Now, if you're looking at your team and you're like, oh, Morpeko actually has a great matchup, like, I could see him bringing Morpeko because it's faster than Moltres. Both of its stabs are good on Slowbro. It'll beat Golbat. It can beat Claydol like 50% of the time when it's in the right form. So I can't discount the idea that Morpeko's coming. But by looking at my opponent's team and seeing what has come a lot, particularly the things that he's getting lots of kills with, the Garchomp, the Blacephalon, the Nihilego, the Nihilego again, Barraskewda, those are the things that coaches tend to rely on as the season goes on. The more they rely on something, the more they tend to prep around bringing that and supporting that. So it is entirely possible that he could bring something like Calm Mind, Drain Kiss, Finny, and that might sweep my whole team if I don't prep for it. And that is a totally valid option. But looking at his team, he didn't bring Finny. He brought Finny and it just died. He brought Finny and it just died. Finny just died. Finny didn't die, but he won, but it didn't get any kills. Finny, again, he won, but he didn't do anything really with Finny. I'm not super scared about an offensive win con in Tapu Fini because my opponent has shown either, I don't want to say no ability to bring it, but no confidence to bring it or no need to bring it so far. So it's a less likely set than something like Swords Dance, Scale Shot, Mega Garchomp, which has come a couple of different times. And when in doubt, As the season goes on, you can go over here to schedule, and we've got these lovely replays. And every time I see Woolloomooloo, I can just check this replay. I can open that up, play that replay, see what they played, see what they brought. Now, keep in mind, those were sets that were made for specific battles against specific coaches. They are not necessarily what they're going to bring, but if you see a trend, if I'm going through all of these and I see that every week we've got Scale Shot, Swords Dance, Mega Garchomp, I'm going to prep for Scale Shot, Swords Dance, Mega Garchomp because he's shown that he's relying on that set. So, being a little bit versatile with your sets and picking different things can throw your opponents off. As long as it's not throwing you off as well, it's a good idea to kind of do stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons, if you go way over here, not tiers, nope, wrong one, stats, you'll see that I have Moltres way up here on the kills board. It's got 9 kills and only 1 death because I've brought a different Moltres set every week. I've brought Scarf, everybody else had Boots, but they've all been different. They've been offensive, sub-roost pressure. They've been toxic stalling. They've been offensive with Boots. Having versatility means it's much harder to prep for that Mon. Whereas Urshifu, also on this list, right up here, 10 and 2. Doing really good. Urshifu's sets haven't really changed. The moves have barely changed at all. I've brought Band, I think. Let me see. How many times have I brought... Where is he? Boston... I've brought Urshifu 6 times. I believe I've brought Band to 4 of those matches. I brought Sub Bulk Up to 1, and I brought Scarf to 1. So you don't necessarily have to be versatile, but he's going to be expecting Banded Urshifu now because that has been what I have shown I am most comfortable with and is most likely to show. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're prepping. I know I'm waffling and rambling a little bit right now, but it's something you need to consider as you're going. Also, priority moves, I think I already mentioned them, but just know what can learn priority on your opponent's team. Now, Aqua Jet is not super likely on Barraskewda because it's faster than everything, but he might slap it on there just as like an emergency check to like Rock Polish Diancie. So if I get the Rock Polish off and Barraskewda is the next thing he brings in after I get a kill, I need to be weary. That might be Scarf, and it might outspeed me. It might have Aqua Jet. There's probably a reason it was the thing that came in. Morpeko having Quick Attack is probably not a relevant thing to know, but if Morpeko hits me, like let's say it hits Slowbro with an Aura Wheel, and it does 90%. Maybe not Slowbro. Slowbro is slower. Let's say it hits Boltund, and it does like 99% with a Dark type Aura Wheel. I'm still faster if I'm Scarf Boltund, but if he goes for Quick Attack, I lose. So knowing that he has Quick Attacks can give me kind of the edge to make that call if I'm willing to risk Boltund to the Quick Attack, if I think he's going to bring it. You'd be surprised at how many Pokemon get one stupid priority move that doesn't matter. Like all the Rotoms get Sucker Punch, Latias gets Sucker Punch. A lot of things get Faint for no reason. Kartana gets Vacuum Wave. Just knowing those moves exist, even if they aren't super likely brings, can help you make better decisions while you're prepping and hopefully stop a surprise sweep with that edgy set that someone feels they need to bring. But anyways, that is a general how to prep and kind of the thought process behind how I go about prepping. Identify the things you think you can break your opponent's team with, identify their threats, and try to figure out a way to get your threats onto the field while neutralizing theirs. That's about as simple as I can make prepping. And if you have any questions or you think I'm totally off my rocker and this is the stupidest thing you've ever had to watch, feel free to pop into WPF and let me know. I'll leave a link below as well as a link to all the other content creators. And I hope you guys learned something, and if not, I'm really sorry for wasting your time. Have a good night, everyone.